Hello, my name is David Bell, and I'm a longtime agency junkie and a director of Distillery. And I get to spend some time with one of my favorite people,
Oh,
Abbey Klaassen.
well, I'm thrilled to be here spending time with one of my favorite people, David Bell.
Your journey is amazing,
It's unusual.
and I love every aspect of it. So, why don't you start with your journey
Sure,
as a journalist
sure,
and
yeah.
take us through creative and media and leadership and everything that brings you to the big job at Tinuiti.
Yeah. Well, I began my career as a journalist, and I was fortunate enough to spend 10 years covering this industry at Advertising Age. And it was during a period of tremendous change. It was when the digital revolution was in full swing. There were all sorts of new companies cropping up that are the big platforms of today. Then Facebook, now Meta, Google, which you know very well and worked very closely with. Twitter was just a glimmer in someone's eye when I started, so it was a lot of fun. You know, I went in 2014 to the agency side, and it's interesting. I think a lot of the skills I learned as a journalist ended up serving me very well at agencies. The ability to ask great questions, to seek to understand, to take in a lot of information and synthesize it. And then, of course, the timeless skill of being a great communicator. And I was fortunate enough to be able to apply those first at 360i and then ultimately at Dentsu Creative, where I was most recently the CEO of the US and the global brand president. 3 weeks ago, so I'm very new in this new role, I joined Tinuiti as CEO. Tinuiti is one of the largest independent media agencies in the world. I think we are a very unique agency in the industry. We have, the scale of a big agency. We've got this accountability mindset at the core, born out of our performance heritage, though today we are doing full funnel work. We had 6 clients in the Super Bowl this past year. And we still operate at the speed of a startup. And that was a really compelling and unique combination. And I am so excited to be here.
Well, in 2 weeks, you've already begun to hone your narrative.
Well, that is supposed to be one of my strongest skills. So working on it. Yes.
So, as I sit here at the Majestic, I couldn't help but think about you and the young creative competition that used to be the billboards leading up to the Majestic,
That's right.
and how great that was. You've always had a penchant for creativity. 360i was creative at its absolute core, and Dentsu Creative was focused. How will you bring that to Tinuiti?
Well, yeah, creativity is a lifeblood in this industry. And I was so fortunate to be able to, be part of the team that birthed that program at Advertising Age so many years ago. And I am, I've always thought of creative as an adjective, not a noun. So, in this industry, a lot of times we label people, oh, they're a creative. And yes, that is a job title, right? But I think if you think about it as an adjective, creativity applies to so many aspects of our business. It applies to how we tackle a client's problem. It applies to how we, discern an insight out of a bunch of information, a bunch of data. It applies to how we might think about a media partnership. And of course, it applies to content. And today, what's interesting about content is it's coming from everywhere. So your creative ecosystem is so broad. And an agency like Tinuiti is unusual in that we have no preconceived bias for where that creativity needs to come from, where that content comes from. So we're working with our partners, our media partners. We're working with consumers, with UGC, with influencers, with creators. And of course, there is some kind of mid-funnel and, consideration, intention-focused creative that we're doing in-house. And so I think that this is a really interesting moment for an agency that can take an agnostic and strategic approach to creative. And you see it on the Croisette here at Cannes. You see all these new types of quote unquote, creative sources. I've seen so many influencers and content creators here. It's not only the people who have creative in their official job title.
I love it. The only thing missing on the Croisette, which used to be there, is a great art director, because it is now garish, Times Square-ish, and bereft of taste.
You said it. Yeah, I think, it's interesting because taste is still something that is very human and I think honed over experience. So, yeah.
It's been said by me that consumers are hungry for emotional connections, and technology has let them down. 360i was great at creating emotional connections. Yeah. How do you see the industry filling that gap?
I think, human emotion is at the core of decision making. We talk about it. How do people make decisions? The majority of their decisions are made from an instinctual basis, right? And then they look for facts to back those up.
That's it.
So what we have to do as an industry is we have to have the ability to take information, to take huge swaths of data. And by the way, technology can help us with this. It can be a partner to us, but it's not a replacement for what we have to do as humans, which is take all of that and distill it into something that is meaningful, that will move people, that understands their motivations. And, at an agency like Tinuiti, where we're doing that from a planning and strategic perspective, where do we need to show up? Who's the company that we need to keep? Who are the partners that make sense in this moment, in this time, that have meaning with the people we're trying to reach? Those are things that, a media agency has to do. And from a creative standpoint, of course, it comes down to, are we creating content that moves people, gets them to feel something?
You used to grade the industry on creative. How would you grade the industry today?
Oh, that's a tough question. If I were to give the industry a grade on creative today, I would say we are probably at a B. I think there's opportunity for us to get to an A, but I also worry we could easily drift into, a failing territory if we don't remember the fundamentals of what creativity is about. If we don't, if we let machines take over entirely. And, we have a fundamental belief, I have a fundamental belief that we are better together. And that means humans, and it means, by the way, AI and humans.
Beautiful. Somebody said something the other day that I love, which is, AI gets us to mediocrity. Humans take it to the next level.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
Isn't that
yes,
a great line?
It's a great line. It's a great
How
line.
does Tinuiti look at transparency?
So we are entirely focused on what is going to get to the best outcome for clients. As an agency that historically was grounded in performance but has grown into a full funnel partner, we put accountability at the heart of everything we do. So that means, how are we measuring everything we're doing out there for clients? How are we optimizing? And it doesn't just mean measuring toward a performance metric. We also believe it's incredibly important to think holistically. So yes, we're very focused on understanding how the work we're doing is driving people to a brand's website to convert. We have a lot of DTC clients. We're focused on how it's driving people into commerce channels. We do a lot of work with the major commerce players, bricks and mortar, but then it's also brand equity. So that's a really important part of this holistic measurement approach, because we all know so much enterprise value is being driven, not just from the sales that you're generating today, but the way you're building a brand that's going to drive the demand for your sales tomorrow.
Boy, for a creative person, you're sounding very media-centric.
Well,
I love it.
I think as I said, I think creative is an adjective, not a noun, right?
I think you're right. So, if somebody was coming into the business today and you've been all over all of it, what would you tell them to do?
I think it's very important for people coming into the industry in times of immense change to have a bit of a North Star that doesn't change no matter what the technology shifts are. You know, when I think about my career and starting out, things that I held very dear then, I still hold dear, despite all of the change that I've been part of, that I've witnessed, that I've reported on and lived through. Curiosity, being open to learn. Curiosity doesn't just mean, you know, asking questions and being curious. It also means opening your perspective and, you know, seeking to understand, not going into something with a preconceived, you know, opinion, but letting yourself kind of learn. I think another one is courage. It takes a lot of courage to lead through change. We are living in a world that is very ambiguous sometimes, and you know, you're forced to make choices, and choices are inherently hard. So practicing that. I think the third one is getting your hands dirty. This is what I call can do. You know, it's always about, there's always a solution. There's always something you can do. Roll up your sleeves, get in there, experience the technology changes. And I think if you have sort of a set of North Star principles or values, that will take people very far.
Your values have never changed, and it's wonderful to watch. One last question.
Sure.
Have you been to Minnesota?
I have been to Minnesota. It's been a little while. I did not go this winter because it was a very cold winter, but I was there probably about 9 months ago. So I'm making them come to me these days, you know.
All right.
Have you been to Minnesota?
No, I was supposed to go for Memorial Day, but I got in a bad car accident, so I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
travel. But I'm going back.
That's great. Yeah, me too. I did, however, have a really fun meetup on the Crescent with a bunch of the alumni from my university, from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. And we meet up every year on the Crescent. There's about 7 of us who always find ourselves at Cannes. So some kids going from, as we say, cornfields to the Crescent.
I love it. Abbey Klaassen, you're one of the industry's leading lights, and I'm proud to call you a friend.
Oh, well, likewise. I'm proud to call you a friend and of course, an informal mentor over the years as well. Thank you for everything.